Hello, 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 and welcome to Alexasrewm, where we are not lawyers, we are not medical professionals, we are not law enforcement, we are just people. People who have opinions about all things going on in the true crime community, including what the heck is going on with the Ashley Benefield case. Now, Ashley Benefield is the former Florida ballerina who has been charged with second-degree murder for fatally shooting her late husband, Douglas Benefield, in an act of which she claims is self-defense. Now, last we left off, the state has officially rested their case. Now, I know we're still catching up to speed in Alexasrewm time to real life, so please no spoilers in the comment section below. But last video, we heard from the medical examiner, which for me personally left me with honestly even more questions about what exactly took place this day that the incident occurred. So I'll link that video in the description box below if you haven't checked that out. I highly recommend you do before you dig into this, because this is going to be a heavy one. We're going to go through Ashley Benefield's testimony because she does in fact take the stand. I believe she's the second witness that's called. But first, I want to jump into Faith Brown. She is the former attorney of Ashley Benefield during the custody dispute between her and Douglas Benefield. And we might jump back a little bit to Stephanie Murphy's testimony as well too, just to see if what she testified to matches up with what Faith Brown is going to testify to. It's pretty short, but it's really good fact finding. I believe she's a really good fact finding witness for the state, for the defense. So we're gonna just dive right in. And as always, if you like today's video, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the notification bell so you never miss another video or update about this case from me. And make sure, most importantly, you hit that like button, because it gets this story out and reaches out to even more survivors, DV survivors, and hopefully encourages them to stand up for themselves and to fight and to speak up and share their own stories too. So that being said, let's dive into Faith Brown's testimony.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Just please make yourself comfortable in the chair. Pull yourself up to about 12 to 15 inches from the microphone. It does adjust up, down, left, right, however you need it. If you just need a loud, clear voice, we'll pick everything up.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Will you tell us your name, spell your last name for the court reporter?
Faith Brown, B-R-O-W-N.
Ms. Brown, are you employed?
Yes.
How?
I am an attorney.
And how long have you been practicing?
Not quite 20 years.
Do you have a specialty?
I practice exclusively family law.
And in your practice of family law, is email communications traditionally used on behalf of you and your firm?
On a day, yes.
Okay. Do email communications, are they employed in correspondence with the various courts that you have matters pending in?
Yes.
Is the exchange directly with the judge or representative?
The representative.
And their title is what?
Judicial assistant, or JA.
And these emails, Ms. Brown, are they ordinarily sent and received in the normal course of business for your firm?
Yes.
And are they kept under your care and custody?
Yes.
Are the emails preserved at or about the time that they are either received or sent?
Yes.
I'm going to pass to you, Ms. Brown. May I, Your Honor?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
I'm going to ask you mark this defendant's Exhibit 6 and ask you if you would take a moment and review that.
Go ahead a little bit. Going to review the emails that Stephanie Murphy was talking about during her testimony.
And what case do the contents of defendant's Exhibit 6 represent?
This was in reference to the petition for injunction for protection against domestic violence that I filed on behalf of Ashley Benefield and her daughter, Emerson Canny.
All right. Are those emails an accurate, true and accurate reproduction of the emails that you sent and received on that day or those days?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, I'd move at this time to introduce that as defendant's Exhibit number 6 into evidence.
Any objection? Yeah. Received.
Thank you. That is a string of emails that covers a range of dates.
Yes, it is.
Would you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Ms. Brown, what date the first email starts on?
Sure. The first date was September 17th of 2020.
And when is the last email?
The last email is when I forwarded the email to my client, Ashley Benefield, on September 23rd, 2020 at 9:30 a.m. But are you referencing the last email between the three of us in the email?
My next question indeed is, would you be kind enough to tell ladies and gentlemen of the jury, who were the participants in this string of emails?
The participants in the stream of emails was Vicki Mechanic, who was the judicial assistant to Judge Diana Moreland, who was the judge presiding over this matter, Stephanie Murphy, who was representing Douglas Benefield, and myself.
And it's normal and customary, is it not, to the extent Ms. Murphy would be representing the adverse party, that you would share all correspondence with her between you and the judicial assistant?
Yes, it was a requirement.
Okay. Do you recall, having reviewed the email, was there a particular issue in play?
Yes.
What was it?
We were trying to stipulate to the release of Dr. Brad Broder's report.
And were you attempting to secure a date to do that?
Yes, we were. Well, eventually.
Okay, so I have some very specific questions for you. First, would you tell us whether or not, based on that correspondence, Dr. Broder's report was set for release on September 30th, 2020?
It was not.
In fact, based on those emails between you, Stephanie Murphy, and Judge Moreland's JA, was there even a date that existed at that time for the release of Dr. Broder's report?
There was not.
If somebody testified that the release of Dr. Broder's report was set for September 30th, would that be accurate?
Oh, sustained.
Would you
That
take
was a
moment, if you
great
don't
way
mind,
to
and read
sneak that
the-
one in. You see what he did there? So if you didn't catch my video going through Stephanie Murphy's testimony, I might pull up a quick clip. There was a lot of testimony from her that we had to go through, a lot of stop and go that probably could have been cut down a significant amount a lot, but because she liked to editorialize the characterization of Douglas Benefield and Ashley Benefield. Specifically, remember, she said she gave her just a nasty look. But notice how Faith Brown here, who probably has some choice words to say maybe about Douglas Benefield, who knows? Maybe even Stephanie Murphy. Yes, no. Yes, no, okay. Yeah, no, this is what it said. Because that's all you were called for, Stephanie. Nobody asked you what you thought about Ashley Benefield. So now what she is testifying to, and we're going to play this back. But if you missed my video coverage on I think it was day 2, they called Stephanie Murphy for the state's case when she's going through the reason why, which was so bizarre, the reason why Stephanie Murphy believed that Ashley Benefield intended to do this, to unalive Doug, was because she was afraid of what was going to come out in Dr. Broder's report, whose testimony we also went through on day 2 as well. Now, if you missed that coverage, again, I will link it in the description box below. Not going to play through that whole thing again, but Stephanie Murphy said that was the reason why, because this incident took place on the 27th. So if the hearing was on the 30th, that fits in perfectly with the state's case. That fits in perfectly with the state's narrative. That Ashley was afraid what was going to come out in this report, which we went through, and it seemed like a whole lot of nothing burger. If anything, what if anything? It seemed to highlight that Ashley was in fact afraid of Doug. She kept telling all these people she was afraid of Doug. Not once was it proven that Ashley was in any type of way an aggressor towards Doug. People argue, well, she was manipulative. She was stringing him along. Well, we went through that testimony as well, too, with the cell phone data expert that the state called. We went through their text message thread. I gave my thoughts and opinions. Maybe you see it a different way. Maybe you read those things totally different from me. But right now, what Faith Brown, her attorney, her former attorney, is testifying to is that no, that report wasn't going to come out on that date. In fact, we didn't even have a date for when that report was going to be released. That's not what the hearing was about. So did Stephanie Murphy perjure herself on the stand? Because she looked at those emails and she told Mr. Taylor, no, 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 you have the dates. I think you're looking at the wrong email. You're looking at the wrong date. Again, this case is just classic gaslighting. Classic gaslighting. And I think this was a very strong witness to begin their case with.
Yeah, emails.
Sure. Did you want me to read them out loud or to myself?
Yes, read them out loud and start with the string in chronological order. It covers a 6-day period,
Chronological order, yes.
17th to the 23rd.
The 17th to the 23rd, yes. The first email was on September 17th of 2020. It was a Thursday from Attorney Stephanie Murphy to Family Division 4, which was the judicial assistant's email address. I was CC'd on it, as well as my paralegal's email address, Sarah Hawk at myflfamilies.com, and Dr. Brad Roeder. It states, good afternoon, Vicki. I hope you are doing well and have had a good week. Please see the attached joint motion for release of psychological evaluation and report and correspondence regarding same with regard to the above referenced case. Thank you, Stephanie. Shortly thereafter, same day, the judicial assistant responded, received, thank you. Can one of you kindly prepare a proposed order in case the judge wishes to grant your motion? About 30 minutes later, Ms. Murphy responded, thank you, Vicki. I will work on that right now and send it to Ms. Brown for her approval. The next morning, Friday the 18th at 10:18 a.m., we received a response from the judicial assistant, marked importance high, that stated, good morning, Ms. Murphy and Ms. Brown. Per the judge, she will not sign an ex parte order for release of psychological evaluation and report. The judge will allow an expedited hearing on this motion. I have available Wednesday, September 23rd at 9 a.m. for 30 minutes. However, besides both attorneys being present, the judge has stated that Dr. Broder and Manatee Children's Services must be present at the hearing as well, and must be present at the hearing as well is underlined. Further, Ms. Murphy, the judge stated that absent showing where the court granted permission for the other motions stated in your September 17th letter to her, the only, and only is underlined, matter being heard on September 30th day is the injunction hearing. And then the next sentence is also underlined. Please advise whether Wednesday, September 23rd will work for all parties. Thank you, Vicki Mechanic, Judicial Assistant to Judge Moreland.
Because remember, too, she was saying Dr. Broder needed to be present. She thought he was on vacation. This is what Stephanie Murphy testified to. So we're going to replay that back because I know that it's a lot, but it's important because this is, I guess, the motive that the state is trying to use as a reason for, even though they don't need to prove motive, this is what they're using to help prove the narrative that Ashley wanted to unalive Doug because of this report.
My paralegal's email address, Sarah Hawk at myflfamilies.com, and Dr. Brad Roeder. It states, good afternoon, Vicki. I hope you are doing well and have had a good week. Please see the attached joint motion for release of psychological evaluation and report and correspondence regarding same with regard to the above referenced case. Thank you, Stephanie.
So it's the motion to release the report, not the report itself, the motion to release the report.
Shortly thereafter, same day, the judicial assistant responded, received, thank you. Can one of you kindly prepare a proposed order in case the judge wishes to grant your motion? About 30 minutes later, Ms. Murphy responded, thank you, Vicki. I will work on that right now and send it to Ms. Brown for her approval. The next morning, Friday the 18th at 10:18 a.m., we received a response from the judicial assistant, marked importance high, that stated, good morning, Ms. Murphy and Ms. Brown. Per the judge, she will not sign an ex parte order for release of psychological evaluation and report. The judge will allow an expedited hearing on this motion. I have available Wednesday, September 23rd at 9 a.m. for 30 minutes. However, besides both attorneys being present, the judge has stated that.
So again, just backing it up.
And report. The judge will allow she will marked importance high, that stated, good morning, Ms. Murphy and Ms. Brown. Per the judge, she will not sign an ex parte order for release of psychological evaluation and report. The judge will allow an expedited hearing on this motion. I have available Wednesday, September 23rd at 9 a.m. for 30 minutes. However, besides both attorneys being present, the judge has stated that Dr. Broder and Manatee Children's Services must be present at the hearing as well, and must be present at the hearing as well is underlined. Further, Ms. Murphy, the judge stated that absent showing where the court granted permission for the other motions stated in your September 17th letter to her, the only, and only is underlined, matter being heard on September 30th day is the injunction hearing. And then the next sentence is also underlined.
The only, and it's underlined. Now the jury's going to get a copy of this.
The other motions stated in your September 17th letter to her, the only, and only is underlined, matter being heard on September 30th day is the injunction hearing. And then the next sentence is also underlined. Please advise whether Wednesday, September 23rd will work for all parties. Thank you.
The injunction hearing. So the RO, the restraining order. That is the only thing that is going to be talked about at that hearing on the 30th. This is huge. So Stephanie Murphy, did she perjure herself on the stand? Now, again, the jury is going to have to go through these emails. They're going to have to see for themselves. But for me, it smells a lot like perjury or impeachment. That's wild.
Vicki Mechanic, Judicial Assistant to Judge Moreland. A few minutes later, Attorney Murphy responded with an email that said, "Thank you so much for all of this information, Vicki. I admit that I did not go back to check what is scheduled for that hearing, so please accept my apology. In my mind, these cases have always overlapped so much that I just took it for granted that the upcoming hearing is just the DVI. I am available for that hearing. I will contact Dr. Broder, and we are trying to track down the correct attorney who represents Manatee County. Sarah Hawk, it appears, represents Sarasota only."
And she acknowledges it. That's the best part. Stephanie Murphy. That's why when Mr. Taylor is like, "Are you sure you don't want to change your answer? Are you positive? Because I have the receipts. I have the receipts, Miss Murphy." And you even acknowledged it over email. That you said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I got these cases mixed up." You know, they seem to overlap all the time because remember she said that there were two different cases. Which I could get if she said that on the stand and said, "You know what, I'm sorry, like yes, you're right, exactly." But she didn't. She didn't change her story. She didn't change her testimony. She testified that this was absolutely going to come out at that September 30th hearing, which completely blows the state's case out of the water. Completely. If they're going to say and highlight Stephanie Murphy for whatever reason as their star witness, who should have been the lead investigator, let's be real, who they didn't call to the stand. But it seems like Stephanie Murphy is one of their star witnesses, and they just totally debunked her with the first witness that the defense calls. Insane. Insane.
The next email was actually from my assistant at the admin email address, because she handles my calendar, September 18th at 10:58 a.m., where she stated, "Ms. Brown is available at 9 a.m. However, she has mediation starting at 9:30. The next email was about 2 minutes later from the JA stating, if this goes forward on the 23rd, it shall be via Zoom." Then at 2:09 p.m., Attorney Murphy emailed, "Good afternoon, Vicki. Ms. Brown and I are both available next Wednesday at 9 a.m. on Zoom. Dr. Broder is not available as he is out of town on an anniversary vacation with his wife. I've called into 3 different people with Manatee Children's Legal Services, including the DCF regional headquarters, to find out who needs to be included from the organization in the hearing. We have been directed and redirected to the wrong people several times. Can we go ahead and set the hearing?"
But there wasn't a date.
The next email was about 15 minutes later from the JA stating, "Good afternoon. No, per my email to you both this morning, the judge stated that Dr. Broder must be present at the hearing." Vicki. So that was Friday the 18th. The next email was Tuesday, September 22nd at 2:20 from Stephanie Murphy. where she wrote, "Good afternoon, Vicky. Dr. Broder never got back to me regarding whether he could appear at the hearing even by audio only while he is on vacation. So I wanted to let you know that per your prior emails, we cannot have the hearing tomorrow morning. When Dr. Broder did speak with Attorney Faith Brown on Friday, he told her that he would be returning Wednesday night. Is there any chance that Judge Moreland could schedule the hearing for Thursday? We will be in mediation in this case, but we can take a break to do the Zoom hearing."
What is the JA, Ms. Mechanic's response to that request?
Unfortunately, no. The judge has a full docket on Thursday, and even if she didn't, Manatee Children's Services would need to be present as well.
All right.
That was Tuesday, September 22nd. So then on Wednesday, September 23rd at 1:02 p.m., Ms. Murphy, Attorney Murphy, wrote, "Good afternoon, Vicky. I've spoken with Attorney Kimberly Griffin, who represents CPS, and who confirmed that she is the attorney who will need to be present for the hearing per Judge Moreland's instructions. Now that we know who the hearing needs to be coordinated with and Dr. Broder is returning tonight, can you please forward additional hearing dates and times for this matter?" To which the judicial assistant responded about 30 minutes later, 35 minutes, or excuse me, 25 minutes later. "Unfortunately, there's no availability before the injunction date of the 30th.
All right. Was there anything unclear about the fact that the only thing being heard on September 30th, 2020 was the injunction?
No.
Was there any chance, under any circumstances, Dr. Broder's report was going to be released on September 30th, 2020?
No.
I don't believe I have anything further, Your Honor.
Cross.
Yes,
Bang, bang.
I just went through these emails along with you, and you say it's very clear that the release of the report was not going to be heard on the 30th. In reading this, it's hard to get that because the last email says, unfortunately, there's no availability before the injunction date of the 30th. But that still means if the attorney got the doctor and the appropriate people present, that it maybe could be heard on that date, correct?
No.
Okay, so it was your understanding it was not going to happen.
Correct.
All right. What was your understanding of what was going to happen on that date, on the 30th?
The injunction for protection against domestic violence hearing was going to be held that afternoon.
Okay, so you were going to call witnesses. You were prepared to call witnesses?
Yes.
Okay, and have a full hearing on Ashley Benefield's motion to get an injunction against Doug Benefield. What?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
So the hearing on 9/30 was, in your opinion, only to hear the motion to get an injunction that was filed by Ashley Benefield against Doug Benefield, and that was the only thing to be heard on that day.
Correct.
Okay. And wasn't it true that previously you had agreed to drop that injunction?
It's sustained.
No further questions.
That's all, just a request to publish the email.
Absolutely. By passing. Okay. And can this witness be released?
Yes.
And can the witness be released?
What a great witness for the defense. Great. That was like an Alan Jackson cross. An Alan Jackson direct exam. That was great. I thought that was probably one of the strongest direct examinations conducted by the defense. I think he did a great job of, again, attacking the credibility of Stephanie Murphy's testimony without actually stating Stephanie Murphy lied, even though he tried to squeeze that one little dig in there. But again, no, it's like night and day between the two witnesses because Stephanie Murphy couldn't shut her yapper, whereas Faith Brown was just like, yes, no, we were only going to talk about this. That's what a fact-finding witness is. Really, really great for the defense. Really strong, just right off the bat, debunking all just the nonsense that Stephanie Murphy spewed. And again, at the end of the day, the jury is the finder of fact. So they are the ones who are going to get to sit with this, go through this email thread, and if they don't believe what the state is trying to present to them and say, Ashley Benefield was afraid of this, and then you see that pivot when they hear from Faith Brown because they've been backed in a corner. They have no choice but to acknowledge it and say, okay, now we got to shift gears. Well, what about the injunction hearing? Weren't they going to dissolve that? That's the new direction now that they're forced to pivot in because their entire case that they just rested has gone completely down the pooper. So really strong move by the defense and calling her. I'm glad they got her in. Really great witness for the defense. Glad they called her in. Now we're going to move to Ashley's Now we're going to move to Ashley's testimony. Now, I want to give a full trigger warning. If you are somebody who is a DV survivor, or you have family or friends or know somebody who is, this might be extremely triggering for you. I know it was for me when I had watched it the first time, but I think it's really important to get her story, to hear her testimony, and to analyze it through a differing lens, because I know there's a lot of vitriol out there on the interwebs who are saying she's faking it. There's no tears. There's no this. There's no that. And I think we need to give her the open space to share her story. And you can believe that two things are true. You could believe that Ashley is a DV survivor and that Doug Benefield did all these terrible things, but maybe her personal safety wasn't threatened in that moment. Maybe you could also think that Ashley might not be the greatest person in the world. I don't personally know her. I don't think there's anything such thing as a perfect victim or a perfect defendant. I don't think that at all. You could be a human poop stain, but still be completely innocent. I don't know Ashley, but I know I believe her and I believe her story. And this testimony, before we even got here, I had already believed that this totally could have been self-defense. Do I think that was proven beyond a reasonable doubt? Not necessarily, but the defense doesn't have that burden. The state has that burden to disprove that, to prove that it wasn't out of self-defense. And I don't think they did that for me. But hearing Ashley's story may be extremely triggering for you. So if you need to peace on out, take care of yourself, please do. We will be here for you when you come back, and we will follow up in our next video. But I want to go through her testimony, and then I want to go through the expert. I think his name is Bruce Ferris. He is the DV expert that the defense is called, and he just seems like he just has a plethora of knowledge that is just so useful, and I think we could all benefit from learning from. But I want to get into Ashley's testimony first. So we're going to go through this whole thing. And again, if you need to take care of yourself and step out, I'm not going to be offended if you do.
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, you're releasing your subpoena.
Promise bearer affirm the testimony about to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Good morning, Ms. Benefield. As you've heard me tell other witnesses, just make yourself comfortable in that chair. Get about 12 to 15 inches from the microphone. It does adjust up, down, left, to right. And if you speak in a loud, clear voice, the electronics will pick up everything.
Okay.
Mr. Taylor.
Good morning. Will you tell us your full name and spell your last name, please?
Ashley Christina Benefield, Benefield.
How are you feeling this morning, Ashley?
Nervous.
All right, try best you can, relax, and we'll get through this.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit, Ashley, about where you were born and raised.
I was born in Corpus Christi, Texas, and I grew up in Annapolis, Maryland.
What type of family values were instilled in you?
Jackson, how? Oh,
I believe in the importance of kindness and compassion, empathy, honesty, hard work, accountability.
What type of work did your father do?
My
Objection relevant.
I'll allow it.
my dad was a Naval Academy graduate who was a Navy pilot, and then started flying privately for the airlines, which is what he still does.
Really interesting, because what did Doug do? really interesting. And I know a lot of people are gonna be like, she has daddy issues, and like that's just so gross and like disgusting. Like, can we not use that? Can we not use that? Like, it's clear, yes. Like and we don't know what happened. As far as from what I know, we don't really know what happened with her father, but it seems like he isn't slash wasn't in the picture much. I don't know if he passed, but there seems to be some missing element in her life that maybe she feels like she needs to fill. And as somebody who's been directly in her shoes, I know for me, I have dated a number of people who were 20 years my senior. So I think it's interesting though that they had the two common things. So that might be something that she's looking for in a relationship.
And how about your mom?
When I was born, my parents decided that my mom would stay home to take care of me full time since my dad traveled so much.
I want to ask you a few questions about your childhood. Did you have any siblings?
I grew up an only child.
Were your parents active in your development as a child?
Yes, they were very active in my schooling and supportive of my pursuit of the arts.
Hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. We need some. Get some headsets. How many? Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I misunderstood. All right, Ms. Benefield, yeah, if you could scoot a little bit closer and speak up so the jury can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Do the best
I
you can.
apologize. Go ahead, sir.
Sure, do the best you can, Ashley.
Okay.
Do you have any hobbies?
She's saying she's
I love
sorry.
I like drawing, painting, sculpting, ballet. I enjoy gardening, baking, cooking. Most importantly, I'm a mom.
What type of high school did you attend?
Objection.
I'm going to suspend you at this point.
Um,
I'm trying to establish her ballet, Your Honor.
If it's related to something specific, then yes.
Sir. Thank you. Tell us about your high school, Ashley.
I went to a small private Christian school.
And did you study anything in particular in high school?
I was focused on pursuing ballet.
And was ballet a large part of your curriculum when you were in high school?
Yes, I danced full time. I actually finished my last few credits my senior year with an accredited homeschool program for athletes, so I could dance during the day.
Do you still dance professionally?
No.
Why not?
I retired after I tore my hamstring.
I want to ask you about Doug. When did the two of you meet?
We met August 25th of 2016.
And tell us what your impression of him was when you met.
He was very confident in who he was, passionate about what he was doing for work. He was fascinating to talk to.
What was it, if you recall in particular, that attracted you to him, Ashley?
He was funny, very smart, charming. We just instantly clicked.
Was Doug in the military?
Yes, just like my dad, he was in naval aviation.
Did he turn out to be who you thought he was?
No, not at all.
I want to direct your attention, Ashley, now, if I can, to the day of the homicide, September 27, 2020.
Okay.
Specifically, late in the afternoon. Would you tell us why Doug was at your home?
He came over to help load some of the larger items that my mom and I had kind of pre-staged in the garage into the U-Haul truck.
And were there any discussions between the two of you about the order that these things should be placed in the back of the truck?
Yes, we had discussed that my things would be going in last, right at the front, so they would be easy to get out first. At one point, he had me help him load one of the larger pieces into the back of the U-Haul truck. And when I was up in the truck with him, I realized that everything had been all like mixed together and it was no longer separated. And I pointed that out to him, and he got really offended and upset. He said, "It shouldn't be your stuff, my stuff, your house, my house."
Shouldn't be your stuff, my stuff. It should be our stuff, not your house, my house, our house. So she intentionally wanted her boxes in the front, probably because she wanted to get dropped off. Like they're gonna get their stuff dropped off. From what I could even understand too, I think in the text message that we went over in one of my last videos with the cell data expert, is that Ashley ultimately said, "Yeah, I'm gonna follow behind you. She's not gonna ride with Doug." Somebody who's stringing him along, wouldn't she ride with him? Wouldn't she just have him pack up everything for her? I'm just speculating here, but for me, that's her putting up a boundary and saying, "Yeah, we're gonna get out first because I have the baby. My boxes go in the front, and then depending on where I guess Doug was planning on living, his stuff would be in the back because he was the one who rented the U-Haul. So he's the one who's ultimately gonna get it dropped off. So it would make sense that, yeah, Ashley would want her boxes in the front because they're not living together. She had no plans of him living with her, and they went back to Maryland.
Was there a particular demand he made at that time?
He said I needed to start acting like a wife.
Tell us at that point how you chose to deal with him.
I tried to change the subject. I could see how upset he was getting. So I wanted to kind of alleviate that.
And how was Doug reacting to your efforts to do that?
He was getting more upset and aggressive and threatening.
Do you attempt to avoid confrontation with him?
Yes.
What do you do?
I was trying to get him to leave. I kept suggesting that maybe we should be done. Saying I was tired. We should just wrap it up for the day.
And what was Doug's reaction to that effort?
He heard me, but he completely disregarded what I was saying.
I noticed too with their text messages back and forth with Doug when he was like, "Oh, do you want me to come over? Do you want me to come over to help you pack?" And she was like, "No, like no rush. Like I'm not really in a rush. Like I'm kind of tired." Like it very consistent, it seems, with again her trying to put up that boundary line, but also play things safe, not to fire him up too much, keep him at bay.
Ashley, would you tell us if there came a time shortly thereafter where there was physical contact between the two of you?
Yes.
Tell us about it.
We were in the living room, and as he came up to me, instead of walking past me, he walked like right into me, like a body check. He like bumped me.
His shoulder to your shoulder?
Yes.
And describe for us, if you can, the force of the bump.
It caught me off guard. I almost fell. I like stumbled.
How was he acting at that point?
He was clearly hostile. He was mumbling under his breath and was glaring at me.
What was your concern?
I could see that it was escalating, and I didn't want him to blow up at me.
Was there a second instance of physical contact?
Yes.
Tell us about that, please.
We were in the garage, and it was very much like the living room. I had just suggested strongly that I wanted to be done for the day, and as he came up to me, he walked right into me. Again, body checked me.
Finally, was there a third instance of contact?
Yes.
What happened?
We were in the hallway, and we were coming opposite directions towards each other, and he had a box. And as he walked up to me, he looked me in the eye, and he drove the corner of the box up into me.
Where?
My side.
Indicating on your right side?
Yes, sir.
In the hip area?
Yes, sir.
So that's where she's saying essentially that the scratch mark came from. And for everybody who thinks that, oh, she's faking it, and I know it's going to get more and more intense. So right now we're just kind of leading in the moments leading up to it where things seem to be starting to really escalate. And if you recall, if you want to compare her to Amber Heard, if you recall, where was Amber Heard testifying half the time? To the jury. She would constantly turn her head to the jury. Now, I'm not a body language expert. But where else have we seen similar testimony? Oh, Stephanie Murphy, who would smile to the jury. Oh, and what about Jen McCabe, who kept turning to the jurors? I think even Proctor, too, turning to the jurors. Almost like trying to get them to believe. You believe me, right? Where is Ashley looking? She's not even looking at her attorney. She's looking down the entire time. Whereas Amber Heard's an actual actress. People actually have paid her money to act in their films. Granted, she's not a very good actress. but still. And people are like, well, she's a performer, she's a ballet dancer. Two separate frickin' things. Yes, it is performative. Yes, there is theater behind it. But ballet is dramatically different from acting. Let alone being able to cry on cue. You know how difficult that is? And I've said this a couple of times. It took me, personally, when I used to act semi-professionally, it used to take me reliving my own trauma to make tears happen. And that only happened, like, twice my entire time acting semi-professionally. In film, in class. Only times. It's hard. It's hard. And other people have brought up good points too. And I know we're not at that point of her testimony, but depending on if you're on certain medications, you might not also be able to cry. And nevertheless, the reason why I stopped is because everybody likes to compare her to Amber Heard. Where was Amber Heard looking when she was testifying? All these horrible things that Johnny Depp allegedly did to her. Looking at the jury, turning her head, trying to plead to the jury. You believe me, right? You believe me, Jen McCabe, turning to the jury. Ashley is looking down the entire time. I don't even know if she looked at the jury once. Once. So there's that. That just infuriates me when people say that.
What was the result of that?
Scratching. It burned.
Yes, sir.
So she's saying the cardboard box, when Doug jammed it into her, it burned. It was like a burning sensation.
Andrew, what's been marked as defense exhibit numbers 8, 9, and 10.
Just do me a favor, we're going to be holding them up. They were facing the jury until they're admitted.
Sorry.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. 8, 9, and 10.
Yes, sir. Will you tell us what exhibit 8 represents, Ashley?
It's a scratch right here.
And was that scratch caused by the cardboard box that you just related?
Yes, sir.
When was that photograph taken?
The night of September 27th, 2020 at the sheriff's office.
Okay, and how about exhibit number 9?
Also scratches on my side.
From the same incident?
Yes, sir.
Also taken that evening at the sheriff's office?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and exhibit 10?
The same scratches as in 9. They're just, it's a close-up.
Do these photographs, Ashley, truly and accurately reflect the scratches and bruises you received on late that afternoon on September 27, 2020?
Yes.
Do they accurately reflect how the scratches looked when they were fresh?
Yes.
Thank you. I move respectfully, Your Honor, defense exhibits 8, 9, and 10 into evidence.
Any objection? No. They'll be received.
What was your response, Ashley, after being struck by the cardboard box?
I apologized
Why would you have apologized?
because I could see how upset he was, and I didn't want him to get more mad at me.
Where does Doug go after that incident?
He continued to the garage with the box.
And what happens at that point?
We started getting into a back and forth about being done for the day and what still needed to be packed and that I wanted to be done. And we ended up in our daughter's bedroom, and he started screaming at me. He said, "Shut the fuck up." He started calling me names. And he said, "I can see what you're doing. You're trying to get me to leave." He said, "I don't have to leave. I can stay and spend the night if I want to because I'm your husband."
At that point, Ashley, how did you feel with respect
Because remember those text messages too, that leading up to this moment, remember, like, he was so sweet, he was being nice, he was asking her, "Oh," like, and telling her, "Oh, precious girls, this, that, and the third. Oh, you want Panera, you want chai, you want me to pick up boxes, I'm heading your way." All nice, nice, sending her Bible verses about righteous bizarre, interesting choices of Bible verses, about righteousness and sinning, and how you could choose two paths, and one path is to righteousness and the other path is not. That was in my one of my last videos. Really interesting stuff. But notice how the behavior, now that he's in person and he has her right where he wants her, it flips. It's a different attitude change. And this is after all is said and done, I believe. Like I feel like I recall them saying that they were still gonna hang on to Stephanie and, Faith Brown, just to kind of finish things out, go through mediation, etcetera. 'Cause they, like, in court, and I'm glad they did this in this order with Faith Brown, the emails, and then now Ashley's on the stand testifying to this. Um, so all of this, they're still going through mediation. They're still going through all of this. But now he has her in front of him, to himself. There's no mom, there's no kid, like, and we saw in that video that they played the other day, where the state wants us to believe they were one big happy family who was looking to reconcile, and Ashley's just leading him on. The dastardly Ashley Benefield just leading him on. But now they're one-on-one, they're alone. He doesn't have to be nice. He doesn't have to be Mr. Nice Guy.
Back to your own personal safety.
I was scared.
Did you take any steps to try to avoid anything further?
Yes, I ran to try to leave the house
And where did you run to?
to the front door.
Did you make it?
No,
Tell us what happened.
he stopped me. He grabbed me by the hand and he yanked me back. I'm not really sure how he did it, but he like spun around so he was in front of me, between me and the door.
So,
He said,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
"Where the fuck do you think you're going?"
What was your response? Do you specifically recall? Tell us.
I just blurted it out. I said, "I'm done and you need to leave now."
What was Doug's reaction to that command to leave now?
He said, "You can't fucking leave me."
Then what happens?
He hit me on the side of the head.
Actually, I'm going to ask you what's been marked as defendant's exhibit number 7. Tell us what that represents.
It's a picture of my face.
Is it an accurate picture of what your face looked like on that night?
Yes, sir.
Who took that photograph?
I don't remember her name. She was at the sheriff's office.
At the sheriff's office? Okay. Now, what is it about that photograph that shows or reflects the slap or the hit that you got to the side of your head on that day by Doug?
That side of my face is swollen and puffy and discolored around my eye.
And is your eyelid drooping
Yes,
on the side where you were hit?
yes.
Your Honor, I move defense exhibit number 7 into evidence.
Received.
So they're saying that there was a wound to the head, that, and I'm just gonna replay that back. They're saying there was a wound to the head that was photographed.
Who took that photograph? Face look like?
Picture of my face.
Is it an accurate picture of what your face looked like on that night?
Yes, sir.
Who took that photograph?
I don't remember her name. She was at the sheriff's
At the
office.
sheriff's office? Okay. Now, what is it about that photograph that shows or reflects the slap or the hit that you got to the side of your head on that day by Doug?
That side of my face is swollen and puffy and discolored around my eye.
And is your eyelid drooping
Yes,
on the side where you were hit?
yes.
Your Honor, I move defense exhibit number 7 into evidence.
Received.
Because remember, they said there weren't any injuries except for the little scratch marks that were taken that day. That was something else the state had said. Now, if there is evidence, which it seems like there is, that that same night when she was at the sheriff's office, county department, somebody had taken pictures. I don't know who that somebody was, but somebody took pictures of her head being swollen and her eye drooping. So how is the state going to debunk that?
What was different at that moment, Ashley, than at any time in your prior relationship with Doug?
He never actually hit me before.
What did you do?
I ran
Where?
to my room
Why?
because I was scared.
But she couldn't get out of her house.
Ashley, did you have anything in your room that could protect you?
I had my gun.
Did you grab the gun?
Yes.
As you're grabbing the gun, what, if anything, did you hear?
I heard the door hitting the doorstop.
As if it is flung open?
Yes.
And what do you see, Ashley, when you look up?
Doug was standing in the doorway. His face was red. Like the veins were bulging in his neck. The way he was looking at me didn't even look like Doug. His eyes were black.
Does he yell anything at you?
He said, "You're fucking done."
And what does he do at that point?
I held the gun like in front of me and I said, "Stop." And he like turned and he got into this like, it was like a fighting stance. I got low and he started like moving his arms and his hands around. He was making these like jerking motions.
What were you expecting when you were holding the gun out in front of you and you told him to stop?
I thought when he saw it, he would leave.
Did he?
No.
At that point, Ashley, what are you thinking?
I thought he was gonna kill me.
Tell us what happens.
Which is pretty plausible because if she's leading to this point, if she was already afraid of him enough to get a restraining order in South Carolina, right? Enough to want to pursue that in Florida as well too, and to leave him and to get a divorce and to get custody of their child. It would make sense if he's never laid a hand on her before, if she was already scared, that she would think, well, now I really did it. Now I really pissed him off. Now I have no idea what he's capable of, because before he would resort to punching the family dog or throwing the cat or throwing a loaded firearm at me or firing something off in the wall or punching a wall. And who heck knows what else? Who knows what he's capable of now that he's actually crossed that line? And this is what the state's going to argue is, well, he never touched you before. And all of a sudden, he just touches you now. And this is why this is so important for this story to get out, because people don't understand that DV exists in so many different forms. Just like SA. Just like SA. Which is a big reason why I didn't report any of my SA experiences. Because of crap like this. Because people want to turn things around and they see consent as just one thing. Well, you didn't speak up. So you must have wanted it, right? Well, he never touched you before. So why would he do that now? You didn't have any bruises on your body. So you must not have been scared for your life. I was scared for my life as an SA survivor. I can't tell you how many times I would go to this class with my mentor. I would make constant excuses to go upstairs to the bathroom. I would just stay in the bathroom for 30 minutes at a time, 40 minutes, contemplating, just running out the door. And that was somebody who never physically hurt me, whose safety I frickin' was constantly scared and terrified of. For different reasons, not because I thought he was gonna throw something at me or bruise me, but I don't know. I don't know. Behavior like this can escalate. And just because it doesn't happen one time, or just because it happens only one time, doesn't mean that that's the last time. And it's just so ignorant and disgusting to see all these people protecting and essentially just glazing over and accepting that this is okay behavior from anyone, woman, man. It's just really upsetting. It's very difficult to watch, and I know I'm getting heated, but I can't stand that. I can't stand just so many of the disgusting comments that I've seen on not on from you guys are amazing, but from just so many people on the internet and what their views of DVR instead of trying to open themselves to learn what it could look like so that we can make this place a safer place for us to all live in, for our children to live in. So we can raise more smart and kind human beings who know how to treat each other with respect.
Next.
He started coming towards me, and then he lunged at me, and I started pulling the trigger. And he just kept coming. I remember trying to move to get away from him, but he kept coming at me.
Ashley, would you tell us why, if you're holding a loaded firearm, you were attempting to move away?
I was trying to get away from him. I was terrified.
All right, so you're firing. He keeps advancing. What happens next?
It was like his feet slipped out from under him and his legs went up in the air.
When Doug hits the floor, what's your immediate reaction?
I ran to get help.
Can you tell us how many shots you fired?
I have no idea. I was in a panic.
I don't even know.
Do you remember anything about the shooting beyond what you've told us here?
It was a blur.
Where did you run for help, Ashley?
To my neighbor's house.
What's your neighbor's name?
John, say it.
Ashley, I have to ask you a couple of very difficult questions. You okay?
Yeah, sorry.
Ashley, tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury why you shot Doug.
I was scared to death. I thought he was going to kill me. There was nowhere to go. I was trapped. No one else even let me leave.
As you sit here today, Ashley, how do you feel about what happened?
Horrible. He's the father of my child. Someday you have to explain it all to her.
Judge, I wonder, could we have a minute, maybe a brief recess, to have her compose herself?
All right, members of the jury, if you can step out for a couple of minutes, we'll bring you right back. Just leave your notes where they are. You put them face down. Please don't begin your deliberations. You can use your phones, but don't talk with anybody outside the jury about the case. Don't do any research on the people, places, things, or legal topics we're going to talk anything about. Thank you.
Even now, she's not even looking at the jury. So they stop. They break.
All right, you all can have a seat. Ms. Benefield, you can have a seat. Can you take a moment to compose yourself?
Yeah, would it be all right if she stepped out?
No, sir.
May I approach her? With no conversation?
As long as you don't say anything. Yeah,
Not say a word.
yes.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Ma'am, there's Kleenexes here next to you. Those.
Okay, thank you.
Judge, I think you can bring it back in.
Okay, great. All right, let's go bring the jury back in.
Like, you can see her eyes are watering. Like, that's what's just so, like, dim. And, like, even if as I'm watching this, like, because I haven't seen this since the day she actually testified, and it's just, like, deeply upsetting. And, like, I need a moment even to just, like, it's just like that feeling of being trapped, and, like, I might even freaking cry. That feeling of being trapped and not feeling like you can leave. It's like if you haven't been in it, like, you don't know. And I didn't feel this way watching Amber Heard's testimony. I didn't. She's not looking at the jurors once. She's not even looking at his family. She's hardly looking at her attorney. The chair is shaking. You know how good of an actress she would have to be? Meryl Streep couldn't even pull that off. And you know what? If she's a master manipulator like everybody is saying she is, then my God, she chose the wrong career. She should be given an Academy Award. This is real. This is real. This constant conflict of, and she said it. He's the father of my child. She feels guilty. What you're seeing is a mix of guilt, horror, probably regret. And in a way, I mean, as much as you want to believe, or not you guys, but again, that she was this evil woman who just wanted nothing to do with Doug and was trying to destroy him and take away his kid who he barely even asked about. Never talks about Eva. Not from what we could see. And again, where was Eva during all this? Again, I'm not gonna attack Eva. She's been through a lot. And according to Eva, he was a great dad. Maybe he was. Maybe he was a great dad. I believe you can be two things at the same time and still hold secrets. Everybody thought Ted Bundy was a great guy. What a nice guy. So good looking, so charming. He could never do any of these horrible things. Same thing with OJ Simpson. Looks can be deceiving. But this right here, this is not deception. This is real. This is her reliving trauma. I saw an interview too today of, I think, Susan Constantine, who I generally like. I like her takes. I thought she actually had a very fair depiction of Karen Reed during the Karen Reed trial. I saw her at CrimeCon. She gave a really excellent presentation on jury consulting and body language. I thought it was fascinating. But the stuff that she's been doing with Julie Grant, that's why I try to not use Court TV a lot for the streams. I just can't. But specifically talking about this moment and her saying, well, it looks like she is reliving this trauma, or reliving some sort of trauma. But still, she might be deceived. It's like, her chair is shaking. Her eyes are teared up. And tears or no tears, there's so many times where I could talk about my trauma and things that have happened to me without any emotion. Because I'm just so numb to it. And when it happens to you and you're used to this behavior over and over again, guess what? You get numb. Look at, like, I don't know if any of you guys have followed what happened to Chris Cornell and Chester Benefield from Lincoln Park. They were both SA survivors. When they were children, they were AR'd. And when Chester Benefield, I know I'm quoting a song, but it's drawn from real life experiences inspired by. He talks about being numb. You can't feel it anymore because it's just, you're used to it. And I know exactly how that feels. So tears, no tears, that doesn't matter to me. This is real. So no, this is not the same as Amber Heard. Stop with that. If you're gonna bring the jury
Yes,
back
sir.
in,
You might have stepped into the facility, so wait a minute.
like, who is she performing for now? The jury's not even in there. Well, now they're in here, but who was she performing for when she was gathering her composure? The jury wasn't even in there.
Bring him in.
Yeah, exactly. The jury's not even in. What is she playing for the cameras? The cameras aren't the one who make the ultimate decision and whether or not she gets sentenced to what is she sentenced? She's looking at like 20 or 25 years to life. She doesn't need to perform for the cameras. She doesn't need to perform for the Benefields or for her attorney or the judge. She doesn't need to. And then you just see them smirking and smiling. And again, I don't want to drag Eva at all, but I thought this was really inappropriate. And this gave me Peggy O'Keefe vibes too. In the Karen retrial when she was kind of mocking David Yannetti. And just it's just, it's inappropriate. It's inappropriate. And no matter how you feel about Ashley, I mean, I can, again, giving Eva some grace. She's been through heck and back. Losing both parents. And now you're learning that your dad was kind of a piece of human waste. And I can say that pretty confidently. He was a piece of human waste. He didn't know how to treat women. And not just Ashley, but your own mother too. And I can understand that's probably extremely difficult. I can only imagine like children of some of the most prolific serial killers and how you even potentially process that information. Now, I know that's an extreme case, and I'm not saying that Douglas Benefield is anything like that, but I mean, to hear that he did all these things, I mean, I'm sure she's in complete denial mode because in her eyes, she was best friends with her dad. That's what she said. I don't think she testified to that, but on her TikTok, she was very close with her dad, more so, interestingly, than her mother, who had passed. And I wonder why. I wonder why she was closer to dad than mom. If there was a reason for that, if that was a way for Doug to have control over the perception that his daughter had of him. But what if she was closer to mom and mom told her some of the things that were going on between her and dad? What would Eva think then? Again, I'm not dragging her, but I do think this is inappropriate. And again, I believe two things could be the same could be true. I don't know Eva. Eva could be a total brat. I have no idea. I don't know her. But she could also be somebody who has gone through this incredibly traumatic experience. And I feel for her. I feel for her. She could also be an amazing person, really kind, very sweet, generous. I don't know her. I don't know her. But in this moment, this is not a good look. And you're bringing in the jury. Who cares if you do it for camera? They're not the fact finders in this. They're not the ones who get to decide whether or not Ashley Benefield goes away to prison and her child is both without a mother and a father. I think her daughter's 6. It's just a little inappropriate. But even more so from, I don't know who this is, if this is an aunt. But I mean, you know better. I don't know what Tommy Benefield's doing, but he likes to talk. He's been on court TV, I think, like every single night of this trial. But it is inappropriate.
All right, we're gonna. And however, you are in the middle of your testimony. You may not communicate with anyone at all during your testimony. Do you understand? So you can step down and use the facilities. That's just fine, but you cannot communicate even with your attorney while you're testifying. All right? Okay. You can step out and do so. So we'll be in recess until about 10:05 or so.
So they're gonna go to recess. Then we're gonna come back. She has her head down the entire time. Again, without any jury. There's no jury here, guys. And I'm not gonna play through this because it's just extremely like upsetting to watch. But they go on their break. We're gonna pick back up on I mean, again, it's like, who is she playing for? Who is she playing for? Okay, the camera. She wins in the court of public opinion, which she's not. I mean, the majority think that she's a manipulative liar. Which is just upsetting. Like, what is she lying about? There's no proof to prove that she's lying about Doug being violent towards her or his violent behavior in the past. He confirmed it. So it's just like, who is she performing for? The cameras? Okay, fine. But what is that? That's not going to save her life.
Okay, let's go ahead and bring him in.
Long crime isn't going to give her final verdict.
Creation to whole places thing, right?
We picked back
Ashley, would you tell us where the pistol was in your bedroom?
It was in a storage bin. It was on top of my laundry basket.
Can you describe the storage bin?
It was like a square bin with hard sides and cloth covering the sides.
Do you remember how old Emerson, your child, was at the time of this incident?
About 2.
Was Emerson able to access that storage bin?
No,
Whose firearm was
mine.
it? Did you have a license?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to show you, Ashley, what's previously been marked as Defendant's Exhibit Number 2. Your Honor, I'd like to, if I could put that up on the screen, could we?
Are you from the Elmo?
For the blinds.
Oh, sure. Where's the lights?
Thank you, Deputy. Ashley, take a look at the picture on your concealed firearm license. And in particular, are we able to zoom in on the portrait, the picture? Yeah. Ashley, do your eyelids look the same in that picture?
Yes, sir.
Do they look different in the picture that we admitted after you were slapped?
Yes, sir.
Let's put the...
Yeah, let's see this picture.
Let's put Defendant's Exhibit Number 7 up on the screen.
Where is that picture? And what is that picture of? Is that her mugshot?
Ashley, what side of your face did he hit you on?
The left side.
The left side.
Left side.
And as we're looking at this picture, it would be to the right.
Correct.
Is your eyelid on the right side the same as your eyelid on the left side?
No, sir.
And how about your eyebrow? The space between your eyebrow and your eyelid on the right side, is that the same as the space between your eyebrow and your eyelid on the other side?
No, sir.
All right, thank you, Judge. I think we can lift the blinds.
So I believe the first photo, I don't know why Law and Crime didn't show this. I don't know if Court TV did, but of Ashley's mugshot, I might be able to pull that up. I believe that's what they are referencing. And I'm not going to show the other photo for a few reasons. But this is the mugshot really quickly because we can share that. So this is the mugshot that was taken. I believe this is a mugshot, right? So it looks like there's no, bruising. But mind you, when Ashley wasn't arrested immediately. She wasn't charged immediately. So this mugshot that was taken was, I think, like a month later. So yeah, she wouldn't have any probably bruising or any injuries to the head. Especially if, not that they were superficial, but it seems like not enough where there would have been long-term bruising or wounds even that would show. So I could believe that, yeah, if the mugshot was taken a month later, then it would make sense that she wouldn't have any injuries visible.
Was the firearm registered to you, Ashley?
Yes.
I just wish that they would have been a little clearer of like, what date was this on? Okay, cool. This was on this date. This is when this was taken. This is when this was taken. Because I think that would have helped clear things up even more. I don't know if he did. I might have missed it, but you guys know better. But let me know what you think.
Right, I'd like to now direct your attention back to your initial introduction to Doug. How long was it before Doug expressed his devotion to you?
It was about 4 days after we met that he told me he loved me.
Did any significant event follow after he expressed his love for you?
He flew me to South Carolina, where he was living at the time, and asked me to marry him, and I said yes.
You remember the date?
September 7th, 2016.
How old was he at the time on September 7th, 2016?
54.
And how old were you?
24.
When you finally moved in together, what was it like?
It was challenging.
So she said 4 days before he was probably dropping I love yous and asking her to marry him. That seems, a lot of people like to make jokes in the LGBTQ community about lesbians and how quickly we get together. And I even waited, I think, a few weeks before I dropped the I love you to my now wife. I can understand being, I do believe in like love at first sight. That's how I felt with my wife. We had an instant connection, but I didn't verbalize that right away. We weren't moving in together. We weren't getting married. That's a lot. That's heavy. He also lost his wife 9 months prior, which also seems a little mysterious about what might have caused that. We weren't able to get into that. I don't know if that was denied in pretrial motions, but I'd be curious. But 4 days? You're flying her to your South Carolina home? Am I hearing that correctly? And proposing marriage? A permanent fixture? Red flag. Huge. Red flag. Also, doesn't sound like it was Ashley's idea to be like, yeah. But, maybe she was like, "Oh, this seems so crazy, and I've never done anything like this before, but you're like nobody I've ever met." And maybe Doug felt the same way too. I don't know. How quick was he? This would be another question I'd have. How quick was he to get married to his first wife or his second wife? Also been married a handful of times. Not that I'm judging. Not that I'm judging. But it's interesting. I think Ashley also was married too. I don't know what happened with that. Does anybody know? I know she had another relation. I don't know if she was married, but I think she was also married too. So instantly, it seems like this was a red flag situation, maybe from even both parties right from the get.
Um, Doug hadn't told his daughter Eva that we had gotten married, and so when she found out, she was really upset. Just understandable. Her mom had suddenly passed 8 or 9 months before,
Yeah.
and I was a complete stranger to her, and I'm moving into her house.
At that point in your relationship, Ashley, describe for us the man you thought you'd married.
He was very loving and attentive. He was always with me. We did everything together. We laughed a lot. And he made me feel very special and loved. He always was looking for ways to be with me and to do things for me.
Was there a short time after that you were separated?
Oh, yes, sir.
And what was the reason?
Before I had met him, I had planned a trip. And so I went on my trip. It was a cruise with my mom and one of my girlfriends.
Were you able to communicate with Doug while you were on the cruise?
Yes, sir.
How?
We mostly messaged each other.
I'm going to pass you what's been marked as defendant's exhibit number 3, I believe, for identification.
Yes. No, wait, sorry. Okay, I'm the ones that we give you. Sorry.
Yes, sir.
I'll take a minute and go through those, and I'm going to ask you about them.
Okay. Do you want me to read all of them, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
go through all of them. And then I'm going to ask you some questions about it.
Okay.
So she's going to read through this document. We're going to fast forward.
It's exhibit number 3 into evidence.
They're going to argue about it, the lawyers. I think Eva steps out at some point. But again, just notice, like, where's Ashley looking? If she's not looking at her attorney, she's looking down. She's not once ever made eye contact with the jury. She's not even turned to the jury.
You is where he said the following to you.
Here we go.
And I'll go through them and you can respond.
Okay.
Like always being armed. And understanding them and how to conduct warfare in them for the kingdom. If I dwelt on it, I would go into a rage to remove them from the earth. I desire to exterminate them, and holding back is a challenge. They are rats that should be removed. Last night, just the jerks arguing near you about put me in sheer murderous mood, but I was stuck. I couldn't defend you. But could have been a fight, etc. Only you being with me will over time remove the images in my head.
I mean, I'm not a doctor. That's why I always say I'm not a medical professional. But it seems like it's very possible that Doug may have been suffering from some sort of PTSD. Having these visions in his head using language like murderous, like thoughts. The only thing that'll keep me is you being with me to keep these thoughts at bay. I mean, that's interesting. And it seems to also corroborate with some of the testimony that Dr. Broder also testified to, and Dr. Quintel, who spoke to both Ashley and Doug. Do you see any text messages where Ashley is saying, I wanted to exterminate even these people just arguing near you? So again, this is, just to give you the setting, this is Ashley on the cruise with her friend and her mom. Doug is not there. I think they're communicating via WhatsApp. And she went out, find a place quiet for them to talk. They were probably on the phone calling because he's talking about people fighting and hearing them. Was he jealous? Probably. Does jealousy turn into violent behavior? For somebody like Doug, sounds like it. He wanted to exterminate them. These people he didn't even know, who Ashley wasn't even talking to, but they were just around her. He can't stand people being simply around her. So then when you want to talk about, oh, she was flaunting this ring and it's her fault. If he's violent, she shouldn't be taunting him like that. Well, riddle me this then. I wear rings on my finger. All my fingers. Sometimes. I have my wedding ring on right now, and that's it. But sometimes I have rings on other parts, on other fingers. And even before I was married and before I was engaged, I would sometimes wear a ring on my wedding finger. So for somebody like Doug, who might be looking at Ashley, he might be picking out little tiny things like that and be like, oh my God, are you engaged now? And like, just like that, he could create this whole idea in his head of things that might not actually be true. And this is really, for me, this is testimony that could corroborate that behavior. But let me know what you guys think. I don't think it takes
It
a
is
lot
sane,
to set
and
him off.
knowing you were taken advantage of still in my mind makes me explode with anger to take them out. God made you for me.
And again, what kind of Bible verses was he sending her? It was all about righteousness, right? And being afraid of God's judgment. And from the way I interpreted it, is like, you're afraid to love me, and therefore you must be afraid of God's judgment. And it gave kind of like almost a narcissistic, like egotistical kind of underlying meaning for me. But you see how he's like weaponizing religion to use as a manipulation tactic for Ashley. This is the exact same stuff that I have also experienced myself. People weaponizing religion and using it as a form, because it seems like Ashley is also religious, and utilizing that as a way to control. Well, if it's God's will, then you have to go along with God's will, because that's what God wants. Do you want to make God upset?
You haven't seen the warrior side and never want to. We went from joy and passion to now I'm in a testosterone rage inside. But kill the bad people. How long had you been married when you received these texts from Doug?
I believe it was about a month or so. Probably thereabouts.
Do you recall approximately how long you had been married?
Well, we got married in the beginning of September, and this would have been the end of November.
Okay.
So more than that, I'm sorry.
What did you think? Was there anything about those texts that caused you to pause?
Everything.
At the time, I kind of tried to write it off that he was my new husband and he was just trying to be kind of manly and, like, be protective and, was trying to show that he really loved me. I think that was kind of what I
Did you
thought
think
at
it
the
was
time.
flattering?
Yeah.
Ashley, how long did this facade that you've described of Doug's last?
Probably about 3 months.
And what signs did you begin to see that he was not who you thought he was?
When I got back from the cruise, he started becoming very like controlling and possessive. He started criticizing everything about me, like the way I would wear my hair or did my makeup or the way I dressed. I found myself.
Yep. Tell me if you've ever experienced that. I remember when I wanted to get my head shaved, like how I have it now. But at the time, I was pursuing a different career path where I was told I needed to look a certain way, and that he got mad when I shaved. I did an undercut. He got mad at me, or when I didn't want to wear certain shoes he wanted me to wear, or if I didn't paint my nails. But I have no bruises, right? So I'm not a survivor, right?
Myself trying to change everything about me to make him happy.
If you had to pinpoint a specific incident, Ashley, early on that stands out to you, what would that be?
A friend of his had come to town to visit, and we went out to dinner with him. And when we went to leave, Doug had a little too much to drink, and so I said that I would drive home. And he instantly got really mad at me. He was offended. He started screaming at me and continued all the way home. And when we got inside, I told him that he was drunk and he just needed to go to bed. And it really set him off. And he tried to flip over the dining room table. He threw a chair at me. He kept screaming at me until he stopped, and then he apologized. And he said it would never happen again. He said he's really sorry.
And Ashley, did it happen again?
Yes.
Explain what happened.
We had gone to church one Sunday, and after service, after everyone was leaving, we talked to the pastor in like the lobby area in front. And at one point, Doug stormed off, and by the time I caught up with him, it was in the parking lot, and he started cussing at me, calling me names. And when we got in the truck, he accused me of having a thing for the pastor, and he said I was a slut and a whore, and he screamed at me all the way home.
Ashley, was he aggressive and threatening like that in other instances?
It started happening more and more with me, with our animals. He would hurt our pets.
On approximately how many occasions was he cruel to your pets?
A handful.
How would Doug react following a dark episode?
Well, he was either really up or really down. After, he'd be very sweet and apologetic, and he'd be kind, and things would be good. And it was kind of like a flip of a switch, and something would set him off again.
Did you find anything one day, Ashley, that gave you insight into Doug's marriage to his previous wife, Renee?
Yes, sir.
Tell us what it was.
I had been going through and kind of cleaning and organizing, and I was going through a bunch of old devices like phones and iPads, and I found a texting conversation between Doug and Renee, his previous wife.
Let me pass to you, Ashley, what we've marked as defendant's exhibit number 11. Can you identify that, Ashley?
This is part of the texting conversation. This is a text from Renee Benefield to Doug.
Is that a true and accurate copy of what you came across that day that you just related to us?
Yes, sir.
At this point, I'd like to move that into evidence as defense exhibit number 11.
No objection.
Proceed.
So Eva
Let me read this to you.
Benefield. Eva Benefield is no longer here. I don't know when she left, but a lot of people noticed that. I can only assume it's extremely disturbing for her to hear these things about her father. So I can understand her wanting to leave. Um, especially when they're talking about her mother who passed away 9 months before Ashley and Doug got together. So now we're gonna hear the text exchange from Doug and Renee, his second wife who had passed away. I think from they said like heart or they said something to do with like a cardiac arrest or something like that. I know Tommy, creepy cousin Tommy, tried to testify to that. What might have caused it, but it's important because of what Ashley alleged Doug might have been doing to her or attempting to do to her as well.
Let me know if it's accurate.
Okay.
I was deeply disappointed that you distorted the truth about who you really were when I married you. I loved you, though finding out you weren't really what you pretended to be. You kicking me so hard on New Year's Eve on our honeymoon because you were having trouble functioning in certain areas. You holding a gun to your head twice in my home that I opened to you with my children that still love you. Having to sell everything down to my wedding ring. Finding out you were on Viagra, which all of you had to do was tell me, you know I wouldn't care. Trying to film us making love on our honeymoon. Finding out that you wore eye pencil on and on. I loved you so much I didn't care. That's why I was shocked to think you would take pictures of me without asking. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Like, what? I mean, none of us knew this. He took pictures of his wife. And again, I know people are going to be like, well, it was his wife. So, like, there's already implied consent. No, there's not consent. That's not how that works. That's not how that works. That's not how consent works. Consent works by saying, yes, you can do that. Yes, that's fine that you're taking pictures of me. That's consent. Does that woman, this is the woman, this is so wild to me. This is a woman literally speaking to from the grave to us about what happened to her and probably what she was afraid to tell people about. Which is just so absolutely horrifyingly sad that this is how her story is being told. On her honeymoon, kicked. Doug holding a GUN to his head. Her opening her home, because remember, Eva has half siblings. The kids love him, so he must be great with kids, right? How many times have we seen that? From aggressors like Doug Benefield, who are great with everybody. Everybody loves him. That's why they can't believe he would do such a thing, right? It's a facade. But now this woman is speaking to us from the grave about who Doug Benefield really was. And I get he's the victim in this case, in this trial. But very well, Ashley Benefield could have been the victim in this case. And what say you if the roles were reversed? It also brings up a good point about his financial situation. Why would Renee, the second wife, have to sell everything pretty much down to her wedding ring to support him? Do we even know what he did for money? Well, we know he had a lawsuit against him. From another investor who lent him money to invest in something. I forget what the project was, but I think it was back in the 90s. He had a lawsuit against him. And probably many more. Of him using funds that aren't his. So why, if he had money and Ashley's such a gold digger, why is Renee now telling us she had to sell everything pretty much down to her wedding ring? And it seems like he's moving into her home because it seems like he had nothing. I mean, how many times have we heard? I don't know if you guys have heard the John Donne story. I forget what his name is. Um, but this woman, he was a con man, and he, I think, like, said he worked as a doctor, but he wasn't really a doctor. He was a fraud. Then he ends up attacking the daughter. She somehow, by miracle, survives. But this whole time, he has this whole position, this facade of this is who I am. The daughter knew something was up. Something seemed not right. The mother had no idea. So yeah, it is possible to appear one way, and it seems like his family is just in denial about who he was. And maybe they never knew. Maybe he's that good at hiding it, or maybe themselves. Maybe they are also similar. But I wonder. Cousin Tommy seems to be the only one sticking up for him, aside from his daughter and love crazed Stephanie Murphy. But what about his good friend Tripp, who married them? Did he ever testify? Is he there? I don't know if he's sitting in the courtroom. I mean, he seems to have some supporters, probably family. But I'm just curious, did any of them know about any of this? It's in the text message. You're going to say that Renee is lying too? That she was lying about this stuff?
Tell us, Ashley, how Doug would act when he would go off.
He would call it a fit of rage. Sometimes it was as simple as him just yelling and screaming at me or cussing at me, calling me names. Other times he would throw things or break things or smash things. He would come at me like he was going to hit me. He told me I was lucky that he punched walls instead of me.
Are there any incidences in particular, Ashley, that stand out to you?
Yes.
Tell us, please.
We were having an argument, and he came at me like he was going to hit me. And our dog Sully jumped up in between us, and he punched him in the face so hard that he knocked him out. I just remember screaming because I thought he had killed him.
Were there other times that Doug hurt the animals?
Yes, he had kicked, punched Sully. He threw our cat multiple times. One time he threw Snuffy down the stairs.
That just like breaks my heart as a cat owner. Like if you hurt animals, you're a deplorable human being. Like you are human waste. If you put hands on animals, you are a piece of human waste. And remember that. Remember what she says about that. Because it's going to come up later when we talk about, when we go through the defense's expert for DV. We talked about some of the telltale signs of what that behavior could eventually escalate into. And it seems like it's progressing. And it's getting worse. And it seems like this isn't the first time he's acted out violently towards another human being. Maybe even towards animals.
What kind of impact did this behavior have on you?
I was always walking on eggshells, trying to do the right things. Because if I said the wrong thing, he would get mad at me. And so I always tried to do it right. If I wore the wrong thing, he would call me a whore or a slut. I feel like I couldn't do anything right.
Was there an incident, Ashley, in June of 2017 that you vividly recall?
Yes.
Please explain it.
We were having an argument, and it started getting really out of hand. He pulled a gun out, and he was like waving it around. And then he threw it at me, and it hit the wall behind me, punched a hole in the wall. So I went to run to try to leave. He pulled the gun out and held it to his head. He said that he's going to blow his fucking brains out, and I was going to have to watch him. And then he pulled the trigger, and he shot a hole in the ceiling in the kitchen.
Ashley, at that point, what were you thinking about your marriage?
He wasn't anything like I thought he was.
And what did Eva Benefield testify to? That, yeah, she did see patched up holes that her father patched up. She did see a little hole that resembled a bullet hole in the kitchen. And what did Renee say in the text messages? That he held a GUN to his head. Seems to corroborate.
I feel like I made a really big mistake marrying him. Seems like I was just living in this nightmare. I never knew what I was going to get.
Did there come a time in July or August of 2017 when you found yourself with child?
Yes.
So let's be clear here chronologically. You became pregnant after this incident where you related that he shot the gun in the ceiling of the kitchen?
Yes, it would have been like right after that, I guess.
Was it planned?
No, it's the last thing on my mind at that point.
How would you deal with Doug?
I tried to do all the right things and keep him happy. Kind of just go with the flow. I didn't want to rock the boat ever.
Probably would
Did you have a
include
difficult
sleeping with
pregnancy?
him.
Yes, I was really sick.
Did you go home from South Carolina to stay with your mom here in Bradenton at the end of August 2017?
Yes, sir.
Did there come a time when you returned to South Carolina?
Yes.
Would you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Ashley, why you returned to South Carolina?
I had decided that I was going to leave him. And so I went back to get my things. And he brought me down. I didn't even have like a suitcase or anything. So I went back to get my stuff. And I wrote him a note and left him a letter saying why I was leaving.
So they're gonna go to sidebar. So this is a lot, very different from what the state is saying. That Ashley left because she needed her mommy because she was having a difficult pregnancy. That she chose that she made Doug bring her down there. Whereas according to Ashley, she's saying, no, he dropped me off there. Remember Alicia Byers, her mother testified that he said you deal with her now. And then she decided, probably within that time frame, when she had separation, physical separation from him, I gotta leave him. She goes back up. She leaves a note. I can understand why she left a note because she'd probably be afraid to have this conversation in person. What the heck would he do if I told him, yeah, I'm gonna leave you? Are you kidding me? You know what happens when I stay. What's gonna happen when I tell him I'm gonna leave? So yeah, I can understand that being the safest probably option maybe in her mindset. Maybe she still loves him, but she wants the nightmare to end. So we're going to fast forward a little bit.
I'd like to make a statement for the record. I'd like to make a statement for the record. Identify what we marked for identification of defendants exhibit number.
Sustained.
Well, she can't even identify it.
No, sir. I remember one.
You told us you left him a letter?
Yes.
All right.
I don't think
I'm
she
going to ask
can
you
read
a
the
series of
letter.
questions. Let me pass this to you. You can.
Sustained.
Do you remember independently everything that you said in the letter?
Not everything, no.
Would it help refresh your recollection if you were able to see the letter?
Yes.
Sustained.
Can't talk
At the
about the
time that
letter.
you wrote the letter, Ashley, were the contents fresh in your mind?
At the time, yes.
The letter was written in September 2017.
Yes, that's correct.
It's now 2024,
Yes, sir.
so 7 years ago.
Yes.
3 years
All right.
before.
Do your best
Okay.
to try to respond to a series of questions I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
What did you tell Doug?
Sustained. So can you approach, please?
Can't talk about the letter. Which I mean, I don't understand why. I don't understand how. That's not relevant, but okay.
How did you feel about your personal safety when you left Doug?
I was scared.
What was it that made you uncomfortable?
There's a lot of things. Just the things that he'd done, like punching her dog and shooting the gun and different things he would say and do.
And were you afraid for just you?
I was pregnant at the time. I was scared for the baby.
A lot of super shuffling.
By him?
Yes.
Her own safety had been placed in danger as a result of conduct by him?
Yes.
Can you give us some examples?
I guess one thing that comes to mind is sometimes he would drive really scary, yelling and screaming at me, like running up on curbs. One time he almost hit a tree.
Did you strike that? Describe the kind of things that would be done to intimidate you.
He would get in my face. He'd yell at me. He'd come at me like he was going to hit me.
What about breaking things?
He would break things, smash things, threw things at me.
How would you describe, if you were using adjectives, his behavior?
Possessive, controlling, manipulative, aggressive, scary, unpredictable.
Ashley, did you take any steps in addition to leaving this letter to protect yourself in South Carolina?
Yes.
What did you do?
I filed for a domestic violence injunction, like a protective order.
Actually, I'd like to pass to you what we've marked as Defendants Exhibit 13A and 13B and ask you if you can identify them.
Okay. A is the
Going back to sidebar. So I think what I'm gonna do, guys, is make 2 separate videos on this. One, because I have a meeting in a few minutes. But also 2, I think there's just so much more that we need to go through in terms of like the prosecution and their cross-examination of Ashley and why I think it's just extremely problematic. Not just to their case, but also just overall in terms of conduct. I think it was really just completely uncalled for. Some of the tactics or strategies they used to elicit testimony from her, but that's just my opinion. So I'm gonna make a separate video on that,
Dave, were you present at the hearing?
yes.
Was Doug present?
and then we're gonna close things out with just the defense's direct examination of her. So next video we'll get into cross-examination of Ashley, and then we'll get into our final witnesses for the defense.
At the hearing?
Yes.
Did the judge rule at the hearing?
From the bench, yes.
All right. What was the date of the hearing?
November 3rd, 2017.
I'm sorry?
November 3rd, 2017.
2017?
Yes.
That's for the South Carolina one.
Okay. Now, was that order that the judge decreed violated?
Yes.
By who?
By Doug.
How?
He sent me a package in the mail.
Sent you the package here in Florida? From
Yes.
South Carolina?
Yes.
What was the package represented to be?
A birthday gift, I believe.
And did you open it?
Yes.
What happened?
Well, when I opened it, there was an overwhelming smell, like a real strong chemical smell, and I got an instant headache.
Did you report it to the police?
Yes.
Remember, I think she reported that to Dr. Gilliam. I keep calling him doctor, detective.
Actually, I'm going to ask you what we've marked as Defendant's Exhibit number 14 and ask you if you can identify it.
Okay. Sorry, what do I do with these? Okay. Yes,
What is it?
it's a picture of the package he sent to me.
Is it a true and accurate picture of the package that you received on that day in November?
The outside of it, yes.
All right, Your Honor, on behalf of Ms. Benefield, we move that into evidence.
No objection. Received. Defendant's Exhibit 14.
Package after you opened it.
I sealed it back up and I put it in the garage before I brought it to the sheriff's department.
Now, you told us when you received the package, aside from the contents giving you a headache, that it was in violation of the South Carolina restraining order.
Yes,
Did you, when you contacted the police, request that they take some action?
yes,
What was the result?
no charges.
So Doug sent her tea. And this is when she claims that she believes it smelled funky, that she could have been poisoned, etc. So now they're going back to sidebar.
It actually, by the state attorney's office here in Manatee County, that no charges were to be filed.
Yes,
Do you remember the date that you were notified?
not off the top of my
Let
head.
me show this to you and see if it refreshes your recollection.
Okay. At the top, it says October 8th, 2018.
And I think they said, I don't know if it was Detective Gilliam or not, but I think he testified that the RO was for like 6 months or something, and that's why he's trying to get the dates of, well, when was the package sent, when was it received, when did you go to the sheriff's department, so we can establish a timeline and determine, did Doug Benefield technically violate this RO from South Carolina?
Actually, when did you give birth to Emerson?
March 19th, 2018.
Where was Doug when you gave birth?
He wasn't there. It was during the restraining order from South Carolina.
So he wouldn't have been allowed to have contact with you.
Correct.
You remember how long the South Carolina restraining order was to last?
Oh, here we
I
go.
believe it was 6 months.
So there you go. So if it was during the time that the RO was in place, Douglas Benefield, so all you people saying she took his baby from him and she went down to Florida so she could start a whole new life and this, that, and the third. Well, if he couldn't physically be in contact with her, that would be why he wouldn't be present for the birth of their child, would it not? Because in order to be present for the birth of his child, he would have to be present in front of Ashley, which would be in violation of the RO. So there's that.
Does there come a time when you're concerned about the South Carolina restraining order expiring?
Yes.
So at or about the time of that, what steps, if any, did you take to protect yourself?
I filed for a domestic violence injunction here in Florida.
What was the result?
It was denied.
And was there any directive entered with respect to Emerson?
There was a time sharing agreement set up.
Shortly after that, or at or about the same time, was there additional litigation that you filed?
Yes.
Do you recall what it was for?
Divorce and termination of parental rights.
In the termination of parental rights petition, Ashley, did you tell the court?
Objection, your son.
Go and finish the question.
Did you advise the court in your petition about prior domestic acts of violence by Doug?
Yes.
Overruled. I'm sorry. Overruled. You may answer.
I'm sorry.
You're okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes.
The prosecution does that a lot too, where they'll, sorry, I have like a cat hair on my lip, where they'll object in the middle of a question, and it's a little frustrating because it's like, let him ask the damn question and then object. And I also don't understand how it's hearsay if it's her saying it. So
Do you remember, or can you tell us today what you told the court?
I mean, not all off the top of my head.
Ooh,
You can answer.
I wouldn't be able to tell it all to you off the top of my head from memory now.
Okay, let's see if I can refresh your recollection.
Fast forward.
I'm sorry.
Do you want me to read the whole thing?
For the hot.
I talked about him punching Sully and kicking him, throwing our cat Snuffy, about him trapping me, grabbing me, yanking me, tripping me, shooting the gun in the house, punching holes in the walls, trap me in the closet, smash things like that.
All right. As part of the domestic violence injunction that you filed here in Florida, that was before Judge Moreland, was a deposition taken of Doug.
Yes.
Were you present?
Yes, by phone.
Who else was present at the deposition?
My attorney, as well as Stephanie Murphy, Doug's attorney, and a court reporter.
Was the judge present at the deposition?
No.
And this is so interesting to me too, because they're talking about the deposition. If I don't know if you guys recall, but Stephanie Murphy's testimony was, remember when she said they pulled up and they went to meet Ashley and Doug's daughter for the first time in front of the Manatee County Sheriff's Department, and Stephanie Murphy claims that Ashley was like, "Who are you? Is this your new girlfriend?" Like, as if she didn't know who Stephanie Murphy was. And I always thought that was a bizarre comment, because why wouldn't she know who Doug's attorney was? It seems like they were all visibly present and even had Zoom meetings, right? So I don't understand that comment, or like what context that would have been potentially. I'm not saying that Stephanie Murphy made that up, but I don't understand. It made it seem like Ashley never met her in her life and didn't know who she was, but how would she not know who she was? You were in court together.
Were you able to hear the entire proceeding?
Yes, sir.
Did Doug make
Objection.
approach.
They're gonna approach again. So he tripped her. He locked her in a closet, it seems like, or trapped her in a closet. Hurt the animals.
reflect texting back and forth between you and Doug?
Yes.
There you go.
On behalf of the defense, Your Honor, we move into evidence, defense exhibit number 17. F, to shooting the gun in the house.
Yes.
Does he admit to throwing the gun at you?
Yes.
Does he admit to punching holes in the drywall of the house?
Yes.
And does he admit to punching the dog and rendering him unconscious?
Yes.
Objection. What do you want? Those text messages do not say that.
If I'm going to sustain, if you want to publish the exact
Yes,
exhibit that's been admitted, you can do so.
we intend to publish upon completion of the examination. I want to ask you, Ashley, if I can, about other instances of abusive conduct. Was a tracker at any time placed on your car?
Yes.
Was it done with your permission?
No.
Did Doug? Hold on.
So kind of like the photos he took of Renee, his ex-wife, or not
Well,
ex-wife,
stated-
late wife.
Our house in South
Okay.
Carolina.
Refer to them specifically, exhibit number
19 has a
What does that
picture
show?
of a hole in the drywall with my hand next to it. It's kind of been like pushed back in.
Is it a true and accurate production of what existed at that time?
Yes.
All right, and the next one?
20 has a picture of a hole, like a fist hole through the drywall in our home.
Okay, is it a true and accurate photograph of that?
Yes.
On behalf of the defense, Your Honor, we move them into evidence.
State, any objection to defense 19 and 20?
So they're going to sidebar again.
Report that to the police.
Yes.
What was the result?
No charges.
Were there incidents, Ashley, where Doug would appear unexpectedly?
Yes, a lot.
And how would that come about? Can you give us an example?
I'd be driving down the road and I'd see him in the rearview mirror, a couple cars behind me, or he'd be right behind me. Or sometimes he would show up at places that I was just unexpected. I'd see him, or like in the parking lot.
And was this while you were living here in Manatee?
Yes, I was living here
And where was Doug living at the time?
in South Carolina.
How could he do that?
He was driving here.
Was this also during
He was driving there. Okay, I'm back from my call. I had a call before, so I had to pause. So diving back into the rest across.
the time that the South Carolina injunction was in place?
Both then and after as well.
Did you report those incidents to the police?
Yes.
What was the result?
No charges.
Was there an incident with a neighbor, Ashley?
Yes.
What happened? Ashley,
She,
were you present
yes.
for the incident?
Yes. He was outside in the yard at night looking in the windows of my house.
What is the neighbor's name?
Mary A Cawffee.
And was this reported to the police?
Yes.
Did they respond?
Yes, they came out.
Was it daytime or nighttime?
It was nighttime.
In your presence, was an identification made that it was Doug?
Yes.
What was the result?
No charges.
Was there an incident, Ashley, where you and your mother came home to find someone in the driveway of your home?
Yes.
Who was it?
It was Doug.
What did he do when he saw you?
He was 1 foot in front of the house, and when he saw us, he took off running.
Did you call the police?
Yes, I had to call several times before they sent someone out.
Did they take a report?
They did, but by the time they finally got there, he was long gone.
What was the result?
No charges.
I want to introduce.
So all these alleged times where Doug is just showing up in her house, and when the defense does present their case, I don't know if they weren't allowed to call this woman as a witness, but the neighbor who had seen Doug in their backyard, I think that would have been a really strong witness for the defense. They don't end up calling her. So I don't know if that was something that was not allowed in during the discovery hearings. I have no idea. If you guys know, let me know. But I think that would have been a really strong witness for the defense, and just, again, further establishing that, yeah, he was stalking her. Aside from the tracker, he was stalking her. He was following her around. And I'm glad he asked the question, at least, Mr. Taylor, saying, where was he living at this time? In South Carolina. So he's driving all the way from South Carolina to Florida, which is several hours. Charleston to what? To Manatee County. Just curious to see how far that is of a drive. It's 7 hours and 41 minutes now. Like, if you left now. That's on the other side of Florida. So Charleston's all the way on the coast. And then Manatee County is all the way on the opposite end of Florida. I think because St. Pete, I think, is not too far from there. So that's wild. That's wild. And it's like, what do you do for work? How are you able to drive back and forth? If this is true, if we're to take Ashley at her word here, which is why I wish some of these witnesses could have been called, but I don't know if they were allowed to be called, or if it was a missed opportunity by the defense. But that is wild if he's following her and driving down to Florida this frequently to look at her in the window, go up at her house,
What we've marked
Mom's
as defendants exhibit 23 and 24.
or even
Can you
recall
identify that?
the mom.
Yes.
What does 23 show?
23 is a picture of Doug with his shirt off. He's like taking a selfie.
And is that how Doug looked at or about the time of the shooting on the 27th?
Yes.
All right, and what does the next exhibit show?
It's also a picture of Doug with his shirt off. He's working out. He's like doing like a push-up, I guess.
Does that too accurately represent what Doug looked like on the day of the homicide?
Yes.
Your Honor, on behalf of the defense, we move those two exhibits into evidence.
Any objection? Received.
Just one or two more questions, Ashley. Was there a time back around May of 2020 where you wanted to learn about co-parenting with an abuser?
Yes.
Objection. Previously.
Sustained.
To the question, Your Honor, or to the line of inquiry?
To the question.
Okay. Did you take any steps, Ashley, to try to determine how to co-parent?
Yes.
All right, and what was that?
I did some Googling and reading to try to find helpful articles on what to do to make things
I'm going
good.
to pass to you what we've had marked as Defense Composite Exhibit 4, A, B, C, and D.
Objection. Previously.
Can you approach?
They're going to approach again. So I believe, and this case has Google searches too, except in this case, this was a Google search that was made by the defendant, Ashley Benefield, about co-parenting. How to co-parent with a ABUSER. How to co-parent with someone like that, which is extremely telling. So which indicates to me that she was looking for ways. She accepted the situation she was in. She knew she wasn't going to get help, which is likely why when the mother got the opportunity to move back to Maryland, why they were probably like, all right, maybe we'll have a better shot there than here, because clearly nobody wants to listen to me. But it seems like at this point, she's accepting her situation. She's trying to run out the clock as best she can and just make things okay between her and Doug. And to just keep the peace, get along for now, do what she has to do to survive, what she can do to protect her child. And then maybe when they get to Maryland, things will change. But I mean, she's Googling how to co-parent with him. How do other survivors do that? She's not Googling how to unalive someone without getting caught, or anything to show any slight hint of aggression or violent behavior towards Doug. It seems like this is someone who's accepting the situation for what it is and is trying to make the best of it for as long as she needs to.
No, I already ruled on authenticity in the past. So over the state's objection, admitted.
Thank you. Take a look at Exhibit 4A, Ashley. What's the date?
5/11/2020.
And did you do an internet search on 5/11/23?
2020. Yes.
2020, rather?
Yes.
And will you tell us what the subject you researched
On
was?
May 11th,
Domestic co-parenting with an abuser.
All right, and would you go to Exhibit 4B? What's the date of 4B?
5/11/2020.
Did you do an internet search then?
Yes.
What was the subject you researched?
Ask Amanda. How do I co-parent with an abuser?
All right, and 4C?
Yes.
What's the date of 4C?
5/11/2020.
And did you do an internet search then as well?
Yes.
What was the subject?
Co-parenting versus parallel parenting with an abusive ex, the Good Men Project.
All right, and lastly, 4D. What's the date of 4D?
5/11/2020.
Did you do an internet search?
Yes.
What was the subject?
6 tips to help you co-parent with an abusive ex.
All right, Leonard, I think I'm finished. If you just give me one moment.
Okay.
Okay.
What's been previously admitted is.
Seems like he's got another
Ask you
question.
What's been previously admitted as defense exhibit number 6.
Okay.
Do you recognize it?
Yes.
What is it?
It's a whole chain of emails that were forwarded to me by my attorney.
And what is the date it was forwarded to you on?
It says Wednesday, September 23rd of 2020.
Did you read it?
Yes. I mean, do you want me to reread it now or?
Did you read it when it was forwarded to you?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, go to the attorney's approach, please.
Okay. No further questions from Mr. Taylor. That is the end of direct examination of Ashley Benefield. Next video, we will get into cross-examination by the prosecution. What a heavy video. What a heavy testimony. Again, guys, please do whatever you need to do to keep yourself safe. If you need to ever, at any point in any of these videos, I'm not going to get offended if you need to dip out and take care of yourself. I know having honestly a nice break from some of this testimony to talk about my daytime job stuff definitely helped. But it's upsetting. It's greatly upsetting and something that I just don't think you can fake. The constant shaking. If you've ever been through trauma and had to relive it, that is not something you can just channel and fake. There's something real that's happening. Also of note, she never once looked at the jury, barely looked at her attorney. So if she's an actress, then she's in the wrong line of work. Ballet was never for her. She should be given a frickin' Academy Award. But that for me was extremely real, and it was difficult for me to watch at times too. But I think it was really important for us to share. But that being said, what do you guys think? Do you think Ashley's testimony, especially around the series of events, do you think that makes sense and lines up with the testimony we went over with the medical examiner, the way that she was facing him, and the way that Doug was facing her? Do you think it's possible? Do you think the series of events, the way that Ashley recalls it, appears to be credible? Do you think Doug and his violent behavior from the testimony that we just heard, do you think that's believable? Let me know what you think in the comment section below, but please, please keep it kind and respectful. And if you don't have anything nice to say, then this isn't probably the community for you. And I'm not saying you can't disagree. Of course, you can always disagree, but keep it kind and respectful. You know, that's the tough thing about these cases is that there are a lot of people, women included, who make false allegations against men, good men. Just like there are plenty of men who make false allegations against women and other people. People do wrong things all the time. But it seems like from the evidence that has come out now, especially that the state has rested their case, and we're getting into the defense's case, that there isn't enough, in my opinion, to support that. One, Doug didn't have, I mean, they want us to believe that he didn't have a violent past. He did. And she filed all these different reports about it. And we also had confirmation from Eva Benefield about the holes in the walls and in the ceiling. We also had evidence that came from Doug Benefield's late wife, Renee Benefield, about the physical abuse that she faced at his hand as well too, as early as their honeymoon. Because he couldn't perform in bed? Renee didn't know Ashley. Ashley didn't know Renee. Unfortunately, Renee is not alive to tell her side of things. And who knows where we would be now? Would it be Renee testifying instead of Ashley? Who knows? Would it be Doug on trial instead of Ashley? Who knows? But that being said, if you enjoyed today's video, I don't even feel comfortable saying that, but if you thought this testimony was interesting, this case is fascinating, just as fascinating as it is to me, please hit that subscribe button. Please hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next video from me, where we are going to go through the state's cross-examination of Ashley Benefield and then wrap things up for the defense's case so we can get caught up in real time. Most importantly, make sure you hit that like button. It's free to do. And it really helps tell the YouTube algorithm that this is important news. These are important stories that we need to share. And I know that sometimes these stories can get buried because YouTube doesn't like us using certain words. So we have to be careful. But I think it's really important. I think her testimony, her story is incredibly, incredibly encouraging for other survivors to come forward to. And if you don't agree with that, you don't agree with that. But as always, keep it kind in the comment section below. And I will see you in